Hello YouTube. During the construction of a road near the Russian city of Kaliningrad, a board game of Roman legionnaires was found, and that was basically in September of 2021. In addition, archaeologists have discovered a large number of ceramics and jewelry of ancient Aesti people. We can also refer to them as Aestians. During the archaeological excavations that are being conducted at the construction site for the next section of the Primorsky Ring, scientists came across an ancient necropolis that dates back to the 3rd through 6th centuries of our era. According to the Russian federal agency in charge of the roads, the Northwest, many very interesting finds were discovered at the site of the necropolis. Among them are the fibula of ancient Aestians, pendants for dagger handles, numerous weapons, Roman coins, ceramic vessels, and more. By the way, this fibula, or fibula in Latin, a bracket, it's a fastener for clothing which simultaneously serves as an ornament. Fibula of various forms were common from the Bronze Age to the Middle Ages. They were used by the ancient Greeks and Romans, Vikings, and they were popular among the ancient Slavs too. And in the Middle Ages you could find them everywhere. However, the most interesting find it was the chips for the board game Ludus Latrunculorum, which was popular in the Roman Empire, as well as in the German and Baltic lands in the first centuries of the new era. This game was like a cross between checkers and chess, according to the head of the archaeological expedition, Konstantin Skvortsov. The find is unique, like they found almost 100 Roman glass chips, perfectly preserved in a bag. It belonged to one person. In such an impressive configuration, such chips or play figures are usually not found. Usually archaeologists find a maximum of 10 to 30 pieces, and here they found 100. And for the Kaliningrad region, this case is generally the first in like 170 years. At the end of the excavations that started in August, all the artifacts will be transferred to one of the Kaliningrad museums. So if you are in the area, you will have a chance to see it. As explained by that government organization, the archaeological excavations will last at least 6 months. These projects are carried out as part of the preparation for the construction of the Primorsky Ring, for the territory going from Svetlogorsk to Pereyaslawskaya Kruglovo Highway and further towards the Yantarny. In 2021, the authorities wanted to start construction of the Primorsky Ring from Svetlogorsk to Yantarny. It's very interesting in that area, by the way. The construction to continue the route to Baltisk was given by President Vladimir Putin during a visit to the region back in August of 2017. Look, in ancient times, there were ancient Aestians or Asti on the southeastern shore of the sea, which is now called the Baltic Sea. Information about them in ancient sources is extremely scarce. There's almost nothing. The Asti have left behind many mysteries, but there is very little material evidence that would allow us to find answers. In an incomprehensible way, they seem to have disappeared into the Dark Ages. Until now, archaeologists are wondering where an entire nation that controlled the amber trade on the Baltic Sea coast for more than 1 century, where have they disappeared to, and why so suddenly? They had absolutely nothing to do with the modern Estonians, and they probably called themselves quite differently. And the name used in modern archaeology was, according to one hypothesis, received from the equally ancient Germans. They, at the beginning of our era, would call Esta in general all the inhabitants of the region, later known as East Prussia. It simply meant living in the East. By the way, until the 9th century, East Prussia in Germany was called Estland, that is the eastern country. However, there's another opinion according to which for centuries the ancient Romans designated the inhabitants of the southeastern coast of the modern Baltic as Aesti. The fact is that the fossil resin, 90% of the world's proven reserves of which, as it is now known, is located in those parts. And it was washed ashore. We're speaking about amber, by the way. It was washed ashore with the sea tide. And the tide in Latin is astus, or astus. Well, those who picked up the beautiful stones respectively were Aesti, or Asti. The historian Cornelius Tacitus claimed that the Asti did not even really understand what wealth nature had endowed them with. And I'm going to read from his book, upon the right of the Suevian Sea, the Astian nations reside, who use the same customs and attire as the Suevians. Their language more resembles that of Britain. They worship the mother of the gods. As the characteristic of their national superstition, they wear the images of wild boars. This alone serves them for arms. This is the safeguard of all, and by this every worshipper of the goddess is secured even amidst his foes. Rare amongst them is the use of weapons of iron, but frequent that of clubs. In producing of grain and the other fruits of the earth, they labor with more diligence and patience than is suitable to the usual laziness of the Germans. Nay, they even search the deep, and all the rest are the only people who gather amber. They call it glassum, and find it amongst the shallows and upon the very shore. But according to the ordinary incuriosity and ignorance of the barbarians, they have neither learned nor do they inquire what is its nature, or from what cause it is produced. In truth, it lay long neglected among the other gross discharges of the sea, till from our luxury it gained a name and value. To themselves it is of no use. They gather it rough, they expose it in pieces coarse and unpolished, and for it receive a price with wonder. Germania, chapter 25. Now, according to Tacitus, who managed to insult the Aesti, who disappeared and cannot answer back, and the Germans, who had some military responses to the Roman invaders. Anyway, in his treatise Germania, which was written about 98 AD, the territory of Asti was located somewhere east of the Suiones, of the Swedes. In short, compared to the civilized Romans, Asti are real savages, although relatively hard-working. Tacitus' enumeration of the names of the Germanic tribes was Goths, Fens, Feni, and Asti, Asti. Tacitus wrote that the Asti were the only people who collect amber. Glassum is their own word for it, in the shallows or even on the beach. By the way, I read archaeological articles from the area, and they believe that glassum may be the only word that remains from the language of the Asti. We'll see. Anyway, even for a small amber trinket, the Roman slave owner was ready to give a young slave in exchange, especially if the Roman citizen's health left much to be desired. Medicines and jewelry made of amber were recommended by the physicians of the time for a number of diseases, for example, the prostate. However, let's return to our Estes. They were not only hardworking but also quite belligerent. But there is more to the archaeology of the area. Look, Russian archaeologists made very interesting finds there, like the Island of the Dead near Kaliningrad and other sensational discoveries. The Dark Ages, one of the most unexplored periods of the Middle Ages, is becoming a little bit lighter because of the discoveries that they made. In 2017, the archaeologists of the Sambiysk expedition of the Russian Academy of Sciences made sensational discoveries on the territory of the Kaliningrad region, changing the established ideas about European history. This was told by the head of the unit of the Sambi Archaeological Expedition of the Institute of Archaeology of the Russian Academy of Sciences, Konstantin Skvortsov. An necropolis was found on the site of the future industrial construction, where the ancient people of Aesti buried their dead in the 4th to 7th centuries. The Aesti, who lived on the territory of the present Kaliningrad region and were mentioned by the ancient Roman historian Tacitus, well, they left very little material evidence behind and just a lot of mysteries. They just up and vanished, you know. They have no direct descendants, and they just disappeared into the Dark Ages, and no one knows why or how. The necropolis was located between the two branches of a small river near Kaliningrad, which formed an island of the dead, measuring about 500 square meters. Archaeologists have counted more than 700 graves from various eras on that island. Representatives of the elite of from the 6th to 7th centuries and residents of earlier centuries found peace there. Some were buried in the dugout boats. Archaeologist Konstantin Skvortsov, who led the work on the ancient necropolis, says that more than 80% of the discovered monuments were partially or completely destroyed in the Middle Ages by German colonists. 100 meters from the Island of the Dead, there was a German village, the inhabitants of which used the necropolis basically as a mine to get precious stuff out. Konstantin Skvortsov says that in the upper layers of the soil of the monument, archaeologists and researchers found numerous silver melts, silver Roman coins, amber jewelry, bronze and silver objects, and a pair of gold pendants. Another clue is clay jugs for food and drink, dated from the 13th to 14th century. Medieval outlaw diggers, archaeologists, or grave robbers brought the jugs with them to work. Modern archaeologists also found the bronze and iron weights and folding scales at the crime scene. Medieval peasants used them to weigh the treasures they found. In a week, a medieval digger, outlaw archaeologist, could find as many valuables as he would never have earned by peasant labor in a few years. Many objects were found in the graves which the ancient Aesti put in the graves of their deceased tribesmen. These are clay drinking jugs, belt buckles, knives, glass and amber beads, spearheads, daggers, and many other things that could be useful to the deceased in his journey to the other world. Almost all men are buried with their faithful companions, horses. On them, the dead made their journey from the world of the living to the world of the dead. According to Konstantin Skvortsov, the discovery of about a dozen graves of representatives of the military elite of the Aesti dated to the 6th to 7th century AD. It became a sensation. The graves of the horsemen were a complex two-level structure. People were buried in one wooden chambers. In another, 3 or 4 horses were buried that belonged to an aristocrat during his lifetime. According to archaeologists, the horses were first driven to complete exhaustion, brought into a freshly dug grave where the unfortunate animals strode was cut. The horses were buried in full equipment. Saddles were found bound with silver plates with a thin ornament. In these burials, according to Konstantin Skvortsov, archaeologists found other objects, including those made of precious metals. Some of them, for example, silver-trimmed drinking horns, are made specially for the funeral ceremony. One such horn is decorated with an ornament in the form of animal figures. Modern ornithologists have seen that in one of the drawings, a gerfalcon grabs a swan or a goose by the neck. The same plot is found on the wallet of the king of East Anglia, Redwald, who lived in the 7th century and was buried in the mound of Sutton Hoo, now the county of Suffolk, in the Great Britain. Konstantin Skvortsov suggests that this image is an illustration to an ancient legend or a North German myth that has not survived to the present day. The horses were buried with their heads pointing to the south. Only in one burial, 4 horses lay with their heads to the north. Perhaps they should be taking the deceased warrior back to where he came from, to the land of Aesti, maybe to Scandinavia. The things found in his grave testify to the Scandinavian origin of the deceased. His drinking horn with a tip in the so-called animal style. That's how it was made. On the horn, the eagle clutches a salmon in one paw and a small bird in the other. This is a classic example of North German art. Similar horns are found in graves from England to Scandinavia. Perhaps the salmon in the eagle's paw is the Scandinavian god Loki. Loki was a great prankster. According to one of the legends, after another prank, Loki turned into a salmon and tried to hide in a waterfall, but he was caught by the king of the gods, Odin, said Konstantin Skvortsov. According to him, the horse harness is similar to the one that archaeologists have discovered on the territory from Scandinavia to northern Italy and from the Danube to France. The harness is decorated with gold, silver, and precious stones. Some details depict Odin with his faithful companions, the crows Hugin and Munin, warriors in horn helmets, and other Scandinavian symbols. The two-pronged artifact, the so-called tamga, was a sign of the property of the horse rider, including Rurik himself, the Varangian or Viking who came to rule Russia at the request of the native population. In the 9th century, he was the founder of the Russian royal dynasty of Rurikovich. The same tamga also was his relative, Princess Olga, who ruled 150 years after the death of the horseman, whose grave was recently found on the territory of the Kaliningrad region. The finds of Kaliningrad archaeologists are intriguing. There are thousands of monuments in the ground. So many objects of that era have never been found. Now, Russian archaeologists have received unique information about the customs and rituals of the ancient Estians. It is possible that they will make new historical conclusions. According to the head of the Simbirsk Archaeological Expedition, Alexander Khakhlov, according to Asa Egatova, deputy director of the Institute of Archaeology of the Russian Academy of Sciences, no one expected that the European elite of this level would be buried on the territory of the Kaliningrad region. In an interview with the TV channel Fan TV, Egovatova said the found items are closer to the northern Italian materials in style and chronology. Now they will have to rewrite history a little bit. The Aesti have left the historical scene, but they also have left behind beautiful monuments of applied art. These things demonstrate the ambitions of these leaders, their desire to be the political elite of Europe. This is the most interesting episode in the history of the Baltic Sea, which was previously little known to us, according to Nikolai Makarov, director of the Institute of Archaeology of the Russian Academy of Sciences. Well, a small part of the artifacts from Kaliningrad was presented at an exhibition in Moscow. The rest of the finds are now being restored. The horse riders, or horsemen, were buried in soil with high acidity. It didn't spare the ancient artifacts. The items found at the excavations were placed together with the soil in plaster sarcophagi. Objects were extracted in special laboratory conditions. According to Konstantin Skvortsov, thousands of unexplored antiquities are still located on the territory of the Kaliningrad region today. Many of them known before 1945, that's when the Germans ruled the territory and the Soviets took it in after the end of World War II. While many of them are not even registered as archaeological monuments, and some are being destroyed. In 2014, a quarry complex was opened in the area of the village of Tsvetnoye, which worked despite the protest of archaeologists and historians. As a result, a Bronze Age mound, a Prussian settlement, and a burial ground were just destroyed. An illegal quarry along the Mamanovskaya road killed the so-called Horsemen's Necropolis, where the ancient Estians and then the Prussians buried their leaders. Sand mixed with human remains went to fill up the road to the nearby cottage village. It is possible that its inhabitants literally traveled through the remains of the ancestors of the Russian noble families. We're talking about the Sheremetyevs, Sukhovo-Kobylins, Romanovs, Pushkins, and others, proud names in the Russian history. But now, a few words about the city and the land. Kaliningrad, until 1946, known as Königsberg, is the largest city and administrative center of the Kaliningrad region, the westernmost region of Russia. The city is situated on the Pregolya River at the head of the Vistula Lagoon on the Baltic Sea. The settlement of modern-day Kaliningrad was founded in 1255 on the site of the ancient Old Prussian settlement Tvangste by the Teutonic Knights during the Northern Crusades, and was named Königsberg in honor of King Ottokar II of Bohemia. There are secrets and mysteries that surround the city, and not all of them are safe to explore, and some of them are also of paranormal nature. Not all. But even if we do not look for the esoteric nature of some mysteries, it is not for the faint-hearted. Please see my video about the search for the lost Amber Room. You will find a few interesting things about Kaliningrad. It's a very interesting place to visit, and there is so much history basically under your feet. But let's leave it to the archaeologists to dig, and let's hope that the archaeologists will reveal everything they find. The link to that video is in the description to this video. I appreciate your attention to my work, and if you can support me, you will find links also in the description. And please subscribe to my channel and tell others. I will trying to bring you stories that you will not hear usually, of course, from our media. That's useless, but generally people don't know that much about Eurasia, and this is what I'm trying to bring out. But I also go to other parts of the world. I told you I have an interest in Southern Africa and a few other places. around the world, but you will see patterns as you watch my videos. And again, thank you, and I'll bring you more videos.